The conference room on Council Station Zero fell silent as the distress signal played for the third time. Ambassador Zelnara of the Thaxian Confederacy watched the holographic display with growing horror. The transmission was breaking apart, filled with screams and weapon fire, but the message was clear enough. This is Varus 4 mining colony. We are under attack. 6 capital ships. Krathkon markings. They're landing troops. Please, anyone. We have 3,000 civilians here, families, children. Please help us. Then static. The signal had died 14 minutes ago. Council Director Molthar, a towering being with 4 arms and silver skin, turned to face the assembled representatives. His voice carried the weight of authority that came from leading the Galactic Council for 30 years. The Krathkon swarm has gone too far this time. This is not a cargo raid or a minor skirmish. This is a full-scale assault on a civilian population. We must respond, Zelnara said, her feathers ruffling with agitation. Those are innocent people. Miners, merchants, families who have done nothing but try to make a living on that rock. A Dulari representative, his slug-like body shifting nervously, spoke up. The nearest peacekeeping fleet is at least 3 weeks away. Even if we order them to maximum speed, they cannot arrive in less than 18 days. Varus 4 does not have 18 hours. The room erupted in overlapping voices. Some called for sanctions. Others demanded diplomatic protests. A few more realistic members simply sat in defeated silence. They all knew the truth. The Council was a force for peace and cooperation, but it had never been designed for rapid military response. Their fleets were strong but scattered, their protocols lengthy, their bureaucracy heavy. We could hire mercenaries, someone suggested weakly. The Krathkon would slaughter them, another responded. And we all know it. Zelnara looked around the room at her fellow council members. These were good people from dozens of different species, all committed to peace and prosperity across the galaxy. But right now they were helpless. The Krathkon knew it too. That was why they had grown bolder over the years, raiding colonies on the edges of council space, taking slaves, stripping resources, and vanishing before any response could be organized. She thought of the humans. The idea came to her suddenly, and for a moment she hesitated. Humanity was still new to the Council, only 30 years since their admission. Their entry had been controversial. Most species had welcomed them after the initial misunderstanding of first contact had been resolved, but others remained wary. Humanity had destroyed the Vexnari scouting fleet that had made the mistake of firing first. Not just defeated them, destroyed them, completely, in less than 2 days. Since then, humans had been model citizens. They traded fairly, shared technology generously, and sent explorers and scientists to the far reaches of known space. They had even established a successful colony on Kepler 442b, living peacefully alongside Thaxian and Dulari neighbors. But everyone remembered what happened to the Vexnari. What about the humans? Zelnara said quietly. The room fell silent again, but this time the quality of the silence was different. Uncomfortable. Fearful. The humans are weeks away as well, Molthar said carefully. Earth is on the far side of the sector. But their ships are faster, Zelnara pressed. Everyone knows this. Their fusion drives are more powerful than anything else in council space. And they have a military fleet, a real one, not just peacekeepers. We do not ask member species to fight our battles, Molthar said, but his voice lacked conviction. Then what do we do? Zelnara demanded, her voice rising. Do we simply write a formal apology to the families on Varus 4? Do we send a strongly worded letter to the Krathkon? 3,000 people are about to die or worse, and we sit here talking about protocols. A long moment passed. Finally, the Dulari representative spoke. I have heard stories about the human military. Terrible stories. They say humans have weapons that can crack planets. They say human soldiers are augmented with machines and can fight for days without rest. They say humanity has spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of war. Stories, Molthar said. Exaggerations. The Vexnari thought the same thing, Zelnara said quietly. Right up until the moment they ceased to exist as a spacefaring species. The council director looked at her for a long time. She could see him weighing the options, running through scenarios in his mind. Finally, he nodded slowly. Very well. We will send the request, but let the record show that I do this with great reluctance. We may be opening a door that we cannot close. Or we may be saving 3,000 lives, Zelnara countered. The message was composed with care, It detailed the situation at Varus 4, provided all available intelligence on the Krathkon force, and included the distress call recording. At the end, they added a simple line. The Galactic Council requests assistance from the Terran Defense Force in responding to this humanitarian crisis. They sent it through the quantum communication relay, the message traveling faster than light itself, crossing the vast distance to Earth in mere seconds. Now all they could do was wait. Zelnara stood at the observation window of Council Station 0, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 3,000 people were fighting for their lives. She closed her eyes and whispered a prayer to the old gods of her homeworld, gods she had not believed in since childhood. She prayed that the humans would answer. She prayed that the stories were true. Fleet Admiral Catherine Chen was reviewing supply reports when the priority alert flashed across her terminal. The quantum relay only activated for the most urgent communications, and after 30 years of service, she knew that sound meant someone somewhere was in serious trouble. She opened the encrypted message and read it once, then twice. By the third time, she was already reaching for her communication panel. "This is Admiral Chen. I need an immediate tactical conference. Authorization code Alpha 79er. All senior staff to the war room in 5 minutes. This is not a drill." Luna Station, humanity's primary military command center in orbit around Earth's moon, came alive with activity. Officers moved through the corridors with purpose, their faces set with grim determination. Whatever was happening, it was big. In the war room, a circular chamber dominated by a massive holographic display table, Chen's senior staff assembled quickly. General Marcus Webb, captain of the dreadnought Indomitable, arrived first. Commander Sarah Liu of the carrier Valkyrie came next, followed by the other senior officers of the 7th Expeditionary Fleet. Chen activated the display, and the message from the Galactic Council appeared in the air above them. She played the distress call from Varus 4, and the room filled with the sounds of screams and weapons fire. When it ended, nobody spoke for a moment. "How far?" Webb asked quietly. "Varus 4 is 16 light-years from our current position," the tactical officer responded. "At maximum burn, we can be there in 4 hours and 20 minutes. "What are we facing?" Commander Liu leaned forward, studying the data. "Intelligence shows 6 Krathkon capital ships," Chen said, manipulating the hologram to show ship profiles. Each one is roughly 800 meters long. Standard pirate configuration with heavy frontal armor and broadside plasma cannons. They typically carry between 20 and 30 fighter craft per ship. Ground forces are estimated at 300 to 500 soldiers. "They're slavers," Webb said, his voice cold. "They won't kill everyone. They want merchandise. That gives us time." Chen nodded, but not much. "The Krathkon are known for swift raids. They'll take who they want and destroy the rest to avoid leaving witnesses. We have maybe 6 hours before Varus 4 is completely lost." "What are our orders, Admiral?" This came from Commander James Park of the destroyer Thunderchild. Chen looked at each of them in turn. These were good people, experienced warriors who had fought in a dozen conflicts across human space. They had hunted pirates, defended colonies, and kept Earth's interests secure. But this was different. This would be humanity's first major military action since joining the Galactic Council. "Legally, we have every right to respond to a distress call," Chen said. "The Council Charter is clear on that point. Any member species may render aid in humanitarian crises. But politically, this is complicated. The Council has never seen us fight before, not really. They know about the Vexnari incident, but that was 30 years ago, and most of them think the reports were exaggerated." "Let them think what they want," Webb said. "There are 3,000 civilians out there who need help." "That's all that matters," Chen smiled slightly. This was why she liked Webb. The man had no patience for politics when lives were at stake. "Agreed, but understand what we're about to do. We're not just rescuing colonists. We're sending a message to every pirate, warlord, and ambitious empire in this sector. We're showing them what happens when you threaten innocent people in our neighborhood." She tapped the display, and the 7th Fleet's assets appeared in glowing blue. 3 heavy cruisers, Indomitable, Sovereign, and Relentless. 8 destroyers, including Thunderchild, Tempest, and Ranger. 1 carrier, Valkyrie, carrying 48 advanced fighters, and supporting vessels for logistics and medical support. "This is not our largest fleet," Chen continued. "It's not even our strongest, but it's what we have in position, and it will have to be enough. Commander Liu, I want your fighters armed for ship-to-ship combat and ground support. Load the smart missiles and EMPs." "Yes, Admiral." "Commander Park, destroyers will form the screening line. I want point defense systems at maximum sensitivity. If anything larger than a bolt comes at us, I want it destroyed. Understood. General Webb, the Indomitable, will lead the assault. Your railguns have the longest range. I want the Krathkon capital ships disabled before they can organize a defense. Target their engines first, then weapon systems. Webb's smile was predatory. It will be my pleasure, Admiral. Chen took a deep breath. One more thing. Rules of engagement. Any Krathkon vessel that surrenders will be taken into custody. Any vessel that flees will be allowed to leave. But any vessel that continues to fight, any soldier that threatens civilians will be eliminated with extreme prejudice. The Krathkon have earned their reputation through terror and cruelty. Today they learned that in this galaxy, there are consequences for those actions. The officers stood and saluted. Chen returned the gesture. The 7th Fleet departs in 30 minutes. All ships to battle stations. Let's bring those people home. As the officers filed out to their vessels, Chen remained in the war room for a moment longer. She pulled up the star map, looking at the tiny dot that represented Varus 4. Somewhere on that distant world, people were praying for a miracle. Humanity had spent centuries preparing for threats from the stars. They had built weapons that could crack moons and shields that could withstand nuclear fire. They had created soldiers who could fight in any environment and ships that could cross the galaxy in days rather than months. All of it had been preparation for the day when Earth might face extinction. But it turned out those capabilities had another purpose. Chen closed her eyes and thought of her grandmother, who had survived the resource wars of the 21st century. She remembered the old woman's stories of when the international community had finally arrived to help, how the sight of relief ships had meant the difference between life and death. "We're coming," Chen whispered to the distant colony.
Hold on just a little longer.
"The cavalry is on the way." The 7th Fleet launched from Luna Station exactly 28 minutes later, their fusion drives blazing like small stars as they accelerated toward the darkness between worlds. They carried with them the full weight of humanity's military might and something perhaps more powerful. The simple human belief that when someone calls for help, you answer. Warlord Krathax stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Blood Reaper, watching the feeds from the surface of Varus 4 with satisfaction. The raid was proceeding smoothly. His ground forces had rounded up most of the civilians and were processing them for transport. The strong ones would be sold as laborers, the intelligent ones as technicians, and the rest would be rendered down for organic compounds. Nothing went to waste in the Krathkon economy. He was reviewing the cargo manifest when his sensor officer made a startled clicking sound. "Warlord, we have incoming vessels. Multiple signatures dropping from faster-than-light travel at the system's edge." Krathax turned his attention to the tactical display. 11 ships had appeared, their energy signatures bright against the darkness of space. He studied them with interest. The Council was notoriously slow to respond to threats, and he had calculated at least 2 weeks before they could muster a force. This was unexpected. "Identify them," he ordered. The sensor officer worked his console, running the signatures through their database. After a moment, he looked up with confusion in his 4 eyes. "Warlord, they register as Terran vessels. Human ships." Krathax felt a flicker of something he rarely experienced. Uncertainty. He had heard of the humans, of course. The new species that had joined the Council 3 decades ago. They were traders and explorers, spreading across the sector with enthusiasm. His intelligence suggested they were soft, focused on commerce rather than conquest. But there had been that incident with the Vexnari. "How many ships?" he asked. 11 confirmed. 3 large capital ships, 8 medium vessels, and 1 carrier configuration. "They are broadcasting on all frequencies. Put it through." A human female's voice filled the bridge, speaking in clear galactic standard. "This is Admiral Catherine Chen of the Terran 7th Fleet. Krathkon vessels, you are ordered to stand down immediately. Release all hostages, power down your weapons, and prepare to be boarded. You will be taken into custody and tried for crimes against sapient beings. You have 1 minute to comply." The bridge of the Blood Reaper erupted in clicking laughter. Krathax himself felt amusement wash away his uncertainty. 11 ships against his battle-hardened fleet of 6 capital ships and nearly 200 fighters? The humans were either brave or foolish. Probably both. "Warlord, what are your orders?" his tactical officer asked. Krathax considered briefly. He could simply leave, abandon the raid, and retreat to Krathkon space. But that would show weakness. Word would spread that the great warlord Krethax had fled from 11 human ships. His rivals would see opportunity in that weakness. No. Better to crush these humans quickly and add their ships to his fleet. Human technology was rumored to be valuable. This could turn a profitable raid into a legendary victory. All ships combat formation, Krethax ordered. Recall half our fighters from the surface. Launch all reserve squadrons. We will teach these mammals what happens when they interfere with the Krathkon swarm. He opened a channel to the human fleet. Humans, this is Warlord Krethax. You are outmatched and outgunned. Flee now and I will let you live. Stay and you will become slaves like the rest. You have 30 seconds to run. The response came immediately, and Krethax was surprised by the coldness in the human female's voice. Warlord Krethax, you have refused to surrender. So be it. May whatever gods you believe in have mercy on your soul, because we will not. The human ship suddenly accelerated forward at impossible speeds. Krethax watched in shock as they covered the distance between them, far faster than any council vessel he had ever encountered. His tactical display lit up with warnings. Incoming fire! Multiple projectiles, his sensor officer screamed. The Blood Reaper's shields flared as something struck them. But these were not the plasma bolts or energy beams Krethax was accustomed to. These were solid projectiles moving at speeds that made them appear as streaks of light. They punched through his forward shields like they were not even there. The entire ship shuddered. Alarms blared throughout the bridge. Damage report, Krethax roared. Forward armor compromised. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. Engine room 2 is offline. Another salvo struck them, and Krethax watched in disbelief as one of his escort vessels simply exploded, torn apart by the devastating kinetic impacts. The humans were not using energy weapons at all. They were firing chunks of metal accelerated to relativistic speeds. His fighters launched to intercept, and Krethax felt hope surge. In fighter combat, numbers mattered. His pilots were experienced raiders who had seen dozens of battles. That hope lasted exactly 43 seconds. The human fighters were unlike anything he had ever seen. They moved with precision that should have been impossible, dodging plasma fire with ease while their own weapons shredded Krathkon fighters like paper. Every human missile found its mark. Every burst of gunfire destroyed a target. His pilots were not just outmatched. They were being slaughtered. All ships concentrate fire on the largest human vessel. Krethax ordered desperately. The Krathkon fleet turned their weapons on the human dreadnought, the one they designated as indomitable. Plasma cannons fired in unison, enough firepower to vaporize a small moon. The human ship's shields flickered but held, and then it returned fire. Krethax had fought in raids across a dozen systems. He had destroyed council peacekeeping vessels and battled rival pirate fleets. He had seen weapons of every type and design, but he had never seen anything like what the Indomitable unleashed. Railgun slugs tore through 2 of his capital ships in the span of seconds. Missile swarms overwhelmed point defenses and detonated with nuclear fury. The human ship's point defense network tracked and destroyed every plasma bolt his fleet fired, while simultaneously targeting his fighters with a precision that seemed impossible. One by one, his ships fell silent. His second-in-command turned to him, all 4 eyes wide with terror. "Warlord, we must retreat. We cannot win this battle." Krethax looked at the tactical display. In less than 15 minutes, his fleet had been reduced from 6 capital ships and nearly 200 fighters to 3 damaged ships and perhaps 30 surviving fighters. The humans had not lost a single vessel. "All ships, emergency retreat," he ordered. "Jump to hyperspace immediately." But as his surviving ships tried to activate their faster-than-light drives, they discovered the humans had anticipated this as well. Some kind of interference field prevented jump calculations. They were trapped. The human admiral's voice came across the communication channel again, and this time Krethax heard something in it that made his blood run cold. Not anger, not hatred, just absolute certainty. "Warlord Krethax, you were given a chance to surrender. You chose violence. You chose to continue threatening innocent people. That was your final mistake." The Indomitable fired again, and Krethax's world became fire and pain. The Blood Reaper's bridge exploded around him, and his last thought before darkness claimed him was a simple one. The stories about the humans had not been exaggerated. They had been underestimated. Pelnara huddled in the corner of the storage facility with her 2 children pressed against her sides. The younger one, just 6 years old, was crying softly. The older one, barely 10, tried to be brave, but she could feel him trembling. Around them, 300 other Varus 4 colonists waited in terrified silence. The Krathkon guards had locked them here hours ago, taking the strongest adults away first. Pelnara knew what that meant. The raiders would process them as slaves, sort them by value, and anyone deemed useless would simply disappear. She held her children tighter. Then the building shook. Not from an explosion, but from something massive landing nearby. The Krathkon guards at the door clicked to each other in their language, sounding agitated. One of them activated a communication device, listened, and then all of them suddenly ran out of the building. The colonists looked at each other in confusion and growing hope. Something had changed. Minutes later, the door burst open again. But these were not Krathkon. These were soldiers in powered armor, moving with smooth efficiency. Their armor was dark gray with blue highlights, and their weapons were held ready but not pointed at the civilians. "This is Lieutenant Sarah Park, Terran Defense Force Marines," one of them said in perfect galactic standard. "You are safe now. We are here to evacuate you. Please remain calm and follow our instructions." Pelnara felt tears streaming down her face. The humans had come. The stories were true. The Marines moved through the building systematically, checking for injuries and providing water and emergency supplies. Pelnara watched in amazement as these armored soldiers, who had presumably just fought a battle, treated the colonists with gentle care, especially the children. Outside, the scene was surreal. Krathkon bodies lay scattered across the landing zone, but human soldiers were already moving them aside and setting up medical tents. Above them, human shuttles descended in a steady stream, bringing supplies and evacuation teams. A young Marine, his faceplate retracted to show a kind face, knelt beside Pelnara's children. "Hey there," he said softly. "I bet you two are hungry. We brought some ration bars. They taste like chocolate. Do you like chocolate?" Her younger son nodded slowly, accepting the offered food. The Marine ruffled his hair gently before moving on to help others. Pelnara could not quite process what she was witnessing. These were the same humans that had apparently destroyed the entire Krathkon fleet. These warriors who moved with such deadly efficiency were handing out food to children and helping elderly colonists walk to the evacuation shuttles. On the bridge of the Indomitable, General Marcus Webb stood at the tactical station reviewing the battle reports. The engagement had lasted exactly 17 minutes from first shot to final surrender. 6 Krathkon capital ships destroyed or disabled, 183 fighters eliminated, estimated 2,000 enemy casualties, Terran casualties 0. Admiral Chen stood beside him, watching the evacuation feeds from the surface. "How are the colonists?" she asked. "Medical teams report approximately 40 injuries, none life-threatening. Psychological trauma will be significant, but they are alive." Webb paused. "We found the sorting facility where the Krathkon were processing slaves. Another 2 hours and many of them would have been shipped off-world." Chen nodded grimly. "Any survivors from the Krathkon fleet?" 317. They are in custody aboard the holding vessels. We have documented evidence of slaving operations, weapons trafficking, and multiple counts of genocide. The Council will have plenty to charge them with." A communication alert chimed. "Admiral, we have incoming ships. Council vessels. Ambassador Zelnara is requesting permission to come aboard." Chen and Webb exchanged glances. "Permission granted. Have her meet us in the conference room." 20 minutes later, Ambassador Zelnara stood in the Indomitable's conference room, staring at the holographic display showing the battlefield aftermath. 6 Krathkon capital ships floated dead in space, surrounded by the debris field of their fighter wings. The 7th Fleet orbited Varus 4 in perfect formation, not a single vessel showing significant damage. "I do not understand," she said quietly. "The Krathkon swarm has been raiding the sector for decades. Council fleets have engaged them before and suffered heavy losses. How did you destroy them so completely in less than 20 minutes? Admiral Chen gestured to the display. The Krathkon relied on heavy armor and overwhelming firepower. Against Council vessels using energy weapons, that strategy works well. But we use kinetic weapons, railguns firing projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. Their armor might as well have been paper. And your fighters? Neural interface pilots with AI-assisted targeting. Each human pilot is directly connected to their craft. Response times measured in milliseconds rather than seconds. Zelnara's feathers ruffled with agitation. The council was told that human military capabilities were on par with other member species. That you were peaceful traders and explorers. Webb spoke up, his voice even. We are peaceful, Ambassador. We have not started a single conflict since joining the council. We trade fairly and share knowledge freely. But being peaceful does not mean being helpless. We are peaceful by choice, not by necessity. How many fleets like this do you have? Zelnara asked. Chen hesitated briefly. The 7th Fleet is our smallest expeditionary group. We have 14 more of similar size, plus our actual battle fleets for system defense. The ambassador sat down heavily. The council needs to know this. The political implications are significant. Many species will be alarmed by this revelation. Let them be alarmed, Chen said firmly. We answered a distress call, Ambassador. 3,000 civilians were facing death or enslavement, and we had the capability to help them. We would make the same choice 1,000 times over. I understand your position, Admiral, and personally I am grateful. Those colonists below owe you their lives. Zelnara looked at the display again. But the galaxy will see this differently. You have just eliminated a threat that has plagued us for years in less time than it takes to file a council report. Questions will be asked. Fears will arise, Webb leaned forward. Then let me be clear, Ambassador. Humanity has no interest in conquest or domination. We do not want to control the council or threaten our neighbors, but we will not apologize for being effective. We built these ships and trained these soldiers because we remember our own history. We remember being helpless and calling for aid that never came. We swore that if we ever gained the power to help others, we would use it. Chen added, the council can fear us if they choose, but they should also understand this. Any species that threatens innocent people in this sector will face the same response the Krathkon did. We are not conquerors, Ambassador. We are guardians, and we take that role very seriously. Zelnara looked at these two humans, seeing them clearly for the first time. They were not the soft traders the council had assumed. They were warriors who had chosen peace but retained the capacity for overwhelming violence when necessary. The galaxy is going to change, she said softly. Yes, Chen agreed, but hopefully for the better. Come, let me show you our medical bays. I believe some of the colonists would like to thank the council for sending help. As they walked through the corridors of the Indomitable, Zelnara saw crew members going about their duties with professional efficiency. They saluted the Admiral as she passed, but otherwise showed no signs of having just fought a major battle. This was humanity's normal, she realized. This was what they considered a routine rescue operation. The news of Varus 4 spread across the Galactic Council territories like a shockwave. Every major news network carried the story. The Krathkon swarm, a threat that had terrorized the outer sectors for 40 years, had been completely eliminated by a human fleet in 17 minutes. On Council Station 0, Ambassador Zelnara stood before the assembled representatives once again. This time, the mood was very different from when they had debated sending the distress call to Earth. The human 7th Fleet recovered all 3,000 colonists, she reported. Casualties were minimal. The Krathkon force was neutralized with extreme efficiency. All surviving pirates are in custody awaiting trial. And the human fleet? Council Director Molthar asked. What were their losses? None, 0 casualties. Minimal damage to their vessels. The chamber fell silent. Finally, a Dulari representative spoke up nervously. We have all reviewed the tactical recordings. The humans possess military technology far beyond what we understood. Why were we not informed of this capability when they joined the council? Because they were not required to share such information, Zelnara responded. We asked about their industrial capacity, their scientific achievements, their social structures. We never asked about their military strength because we assumed it would be comparable to other species. That was our error, not theirs. Over the following weeks, the political situation across the sector shifted dramatically. The Krivix Empire, which had been pressing territorial claims against 3 council species, suddenly announced they were withdrawing their demands and seeking peaceful negotiations. The Talreth hegemony, known for its aggressive expansion policies, declared a unilateral ceasefire along all contested borders. Pirates and raiders operating in the outer sectors simply vanished, fleeing to regions far from human space. Several criminal organizations disbanded entirely, but something else happened too, something the humans had not anticipated. The distress calls started arriving. First, It was just a trickle, a mining station under attack, a colony ship with failing life support, a research outpost threatened by spatial anomalies. The Terran Defense Command responded to each one, sending the nearest available fleet to render assistance. Then the trickle became a flood. Species across the sector realized that humanity would actually answer when called. They would come, they would help, and they would ask for nothing in return except that innocent lives be respected. Within 3 months, Earth was receiving an average of 15 distress calls per day. Admiral Chen stood in the command center on Luna Station, looking at the deployment board. Every single expeditionary fleet was currently engaged in operations. The 3rd Fleet was evacuating a colony in the path of a rogue comet. The 9th Fleet was delivering medical supplies to combat a plague outbreak. The 12th Fleet was hunting pirates who had attacked a refugee convoy. Fleet Admiral Rodriguez entered the room, his face showing the exhaustion they all felt. "We are stretched thin, Catherine. We never designed our forces to be the galaxy's emergency response service." "I know," Chen replied. "But what choice do we have? Turn our backs on people who need help?" Rodriguez shook his head. "No, that has never been who we are. But we need to have a conversation with the Council. This cannot continue indefinitely." That conversation happened 2 weeks later in a special session of the Galactic Council. Admiral Chen represented humanity, standing before the assembled species. "We appreciate the trust you have placed in us," she began. "We are honored to help where we can, but humanity cannot be the sole responder to every crisis in Council space. Our fleets are not infinite and our crews need rest. What do you propose?" Molthar asked. "A joint task force. We will share our technology and training methods with interested Council species. We will help you build rapid response capabilities of your own. Humanity will remain committed to answering distress calls, but we should not be the only ones capable of doing so." The proposal sparked intense debate. Some species worried about militarization. Others feared that human technology in the wrong hands could be dangerous. But eventually a compromise was reached. The Council Emergency Response Coalition was formed, with humanity providing technical advisors and training. 5 Council species volunteered their fleets for the initial program. It would take years to bring them up to human standards, but it was a start. 3 months after the Varus 4 incident, Admiral Chen returned to the colony for a memorial ceremony. A monument had been erected in the central square, listing the names of the 47 colonists who had died before the human fleet arrived. At the base of the monument, someone had carved a simple phrase in a dozen languages: "They came when we called." A young Thaxian girl approached Chen as she stood before the memorial. The Admiral recognized her from the reports. Her parents had been among those killed by the Krathkon before the rescue arrived. The girl held out a drawing, clearly done by a child's hand. It showed the Indomitable in orbit above a planet with the words "Thank you" written across the top in carefully formed letters. Chen knelt down to the girl's level. "What is your name?" she asked gently. "Pelnara, like my mother," the girl said softly. "She did not survive. But my brother did, and my grandmother. The Marines saved us. I am very sorry about your mother," Chen said. "She would be proud of how brave you are." The girl looked at her with large eyes. "Will you come if we call again?" "If bad things happen again." Chen felt a lump form in her throat. She took the girl's small hand in hers. "Always, every time. If someone calls for help, we will answer. That is a promise." The girl hugged her suddenly, and Chen held the small child, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders like a physical presence. Later that evening, back aboard the Indomitable, Chen stood in her ready room looking at the drawing. She had it mounted in a simple frame and hung it on the wall beside her commendations and service awards. Webb found her there, staring at the childish artwork. "You know what they are calling us now," he said. "The Council species have a new term. They call us the Guardians. Some of them say it with admiration, some with fear, but they all say it with respect. We never wanted to be guardians," Chen said quietly. "We just wanted to be good neighbors." "Sometimes those things are the same," Webb replied. "We have the capability to help. We have the willingness to act. That makes us responsible, whether we wanted that responsibility or not." Chen nodded slowly. The Council is learning something important. They thought peace came from everyone agreeing to be peaceful, but real peace requires someone willing to stand between the innocent and those who would harm them, someone who will act when action is needed, who will fight when fighting is the only option left. And that someone is us, Webb said. For now, but hopefully not forever. If we can teach others, if we can build a real coalition capable of responding to threats, then maybe one day we will not have to carry this burden alone. Webb smiled slightly. Until then, we keep answering the calls. Every single one, Chen agreed. She looked at the girl's drawing again, at the simple words of gratitude written across the top. This was why they had built the fleets and trained the soldiers, not for conquest or glory, but for moments like these, for the chance to look a child in the eye and promise that help would always come when needed. The communication panel on her desk chimed. Another distress call from a colony 2 sectors away. Mining accident, 300 people trapped. Chen tapped the panel. This is Admiral Chen. Dispatch the 4th Fleet immediately. Maximum speed. Tell them we are coming. Webb headed for the door. I will inform the crew. They will be ready. As he left, Chen took one last look at the drawing before turning to the star map. Somewhere out there, 300 people were waiting for rescue, hoping that someone would hear their call. They did not know it yet, but humanity had already heard. The ships were launching. The crews were preparing. The Guardians were coming, because that was what humans did. When someone called for help, they answered. Every time. Without hesitation. Without expecting thanks or reward. They answered because it was right. Because innocent people deserved protection. Because in a vast and often dangerous galaxy, someone needed to stand in the darkness and say no further. Not while we draw breath. Humanity had not sought this role. They had not asked to be the galaxy's defenders. But they had the capability, the will and the courage to do what others could not or would not do. And so they became what the galaxy needed. Guardians who would always answer the call.